Hey everyone. In this video, I'm going to be going over some of my tips or the way that I think about frameworks on using AI prompting. I'm not going to share my screen, I'm just going to talk, so I hope it's not that boring for you. And I'm specifically coming at this from the angle of we send about 1.5 to 1.7 million cold emails every month. And these are the tips that we use to send the AI generated text in a lot of the emails. And I thought about doing this video because a customer of mine was asking for some of the tips that I have for AI prompting. And I said, "What are you talking about? Prompting is so easy. There's no tips that I necessarily have about it. This is just what I do." And then I told him a four-step framework that we're going to go over, and then I told him another tip, and I told him another tip, and I told him another tip, and it kind of just hit me that I feel like we've discovered a lot of things when it comes to prompting AI, specifically in the cold email use case. And so I just wanted to make a video to go over all of these. And so this isn't going to be a video about what's our favorite model and what do we do and all of these things. We send so many emails that 4.0 mini is just basically the only model that we use for anything. I know there's going to be people who say that Claude or Anthropic is better for copywriting and all these other things. I find that the way that we prompt just makes that not necessary. When you're talking about these different models, when these models are tested, they're tested against which model can pass a high level legal exam or the CPA exam or something at those high levels. Usually all I need this model to be able to do is take in information and then spit out the information without sounding like a robot. If you can't get 4.0 mini to be doing that and you're testing all of the different AI models and things to see which one is actually doing that better, I just don't think that it's a good use of time. Just the cost aspect is why we use 4.0 mini for almost everything. When we're doing research, instead of outputting an actual message, which we'll talk about later on, sometimes we'll use 4.0, but for the most part, we're using 4.0 mini. So anyway, to the useful stuff. So our four-step framework for prompting AI is to first, basically, I will talk about how we use the system prompt and how we use the prompt, and then how we use the examples that you can chain inside of the prompt, specifically inside of Clay. But you can do it for any AI model that you're building. When we're prompting, there's four things that I try to do. One, I try to just generally tell artificial intelligence, this is the objective that I want you to complete. This is just the overall guidance of what I want you to do. So step one is just overall, just tell it what you want it to do. Step two is then I ask it to provide the necessary data in order to make those decisions. So one of the most common problems that I see when I look at other people's prompts is they'll like input a website and they'll say something like, okay, write a perfect cold email for a VP of finance at this website. And it's like, okay, uh, maybe it's going to be able to do that. But what we always do is we pull all of the data down into a column inside of Clay or whatever platform that you're using. And then we're not saying, hey, this is the website. Use whatever you know about the website. We're in control of it. So we're saying this is the information that we know. And we'll scrape the website using Zenrose, or we'll take their LinkedIn company description or whatever it might be. And we will feed the information to the prompt. And then I will label all of that information. So I'll label the information with, say, the person's job title, their job description, and then what the company does. And I'll label all of those things as a part of step two. And then step three is probably the biggest thing that we do, or the thing that I spend my most of my time on. This is where we try to constrain the creativity of the prompt. And so this constraining creativity term, I think maybe Jordan Crawford told it to me first, but him and I, when we were doing a lot of research together when AI was new, this is a lot of the things that we'd focus on. I think of AI as a 12-year-old who has infinite knowledge. And you really have to corral that 12-year-old into the task that you're requesting for it to do, right? And so sometimes another problem I'll see people doing is they're not giving enough guidelines to the prompt. And that's why their prompts go all over the place. And so, for example, if you told a 12-year-old with infinite knowledge, go sell tacos, you think that you gave it enough direction, but that's not at all enough direction. What kind of tacos are they? Are they going to sell tacos from a taco stand? Are they going to have a restaurant? Are they gourmet tacos? Are they truffle tacos? Are they street tacos? Where do they sell the tacos? What should they price the tacos? There's so many problems. Do they give the tacos away for free? So many questions come of the instruction that then that's where you get all of your deviations of your output not being correct. And so here we really set constraints. And usually the way that I do this is I think through all of the things that I want it to do, and I instruct it on all of the things that I really want it to do, as if I were to tell a human to do it. And then usually what I'll do is I'll just test 10 outputs, and then I'll kind of see what needs to get changed, and then I'll edit it in this third part in here. And so then the fourth part is I give examples of what a good output would be. So then I'll say something like, if this is a company description, this would be a good output. And I'll put that straight into the prompt. The main thing you need to keep in mind there is sometimes AI will get its wires crossed. And if you say, this is a good example, use this as an example, the reference data you put in that example, it might bleed through to the output. So a lot of times what I'll say is something along like, keep in mind, this is only an example for you to learn from. It has nothing to do with the reference data above and should not be a part of your output at all, but here's some information for you to learn from. And then we give it the examples right there. Um, and then final thing on this in particular is I also like to stay in control of our sentences. And so I will normally set a prefix for our sentences, because even if you were to tell a human how to write an email, you're still going to say, hey, I found this research from this place, and this is what I think of it. So, I checked out your website and saw how you help fitness enthusiasts breathe better. I checked out your website, doesn't need to change every time. So we'll set that as a prefix, and I'll tell AI every time you output something, include this as a prefix so that I can make the email flow, because I know what that sentence is going to be, because it's just completing that sentence and then it can flow. I don't want it to do crazy other things from there as well too. And so that's just my 4-step framework in that regard. And so, like I said, first you just want to tell it its overall goal. So step 1, tell it its overall goal. Step 2, give it the data to reference from so it can make the decision. And then step 3, constrain its creativity and really give it a ton more of guidance of exactly what you want it to do, as if you were to give a human a example of what to do, and then offer examples as those good outputs, give it prefixes and all those different kind of things. My second biggest tip, I would say, for sure, to help with this 4-step framework is to get some kind of voice to text dictation software on your computer, because sometimes I find myself not making my prompts as detailed as I need them to be, because I feel like I can't type as fast as I need them to be. And so sometimes I'll cut things out and I don't want to do them, and I get frustrated because I just don't want to type them all out. And so then having a voice to text dictation software really helps to bridge that gap, because then you can just talk into it. Because now with 4L Mini, it's so cheap that I don't really care about the amount of inputs or anything that I give it, because my output size is going to be so tiny, because we're only writing just a cold email here. Maybe that's my other tip too, and I'll get back to that. We never write the whole cold email. We only do pieces of it with AI. And so using a voice to text dictation service really helps. Right now, I found Whisper Flow to be really good. It's only available for Mac, so I'm sure if you have a Windows computer, you can just check out anything else. But Whisper Flow has been really, really great for us. And so then that's another thing to keep in mind. I have talked about this a ton, and I forget to tell people because I've talked about it so much. But do not use AI to write your entire email unless you create your own AI like model, which we'll probably talk about towards the end of my plan here. We specifically only use AI, even if we're going to AI generate all 4 sentences, if we're using 4 sentences in a cold email. Even if we are going to AI generate all 4 of those sentences, I use a different prompt for each one of those sentences, because if you ask it to do too many things at once, it starts going off the rails. And so I would say that goes into just our other tip is whenever we're using AI, again, I don't ask it to even write 2 sentences at a time. So we also don't ask it to do multiple things at once as well too. And so a good example of that is sometimes you're using AI to do research, and then sometimes you're using AI to write something. And so what I won't have AI do is I won't have AI do both the research and the writing in one prompt. And so let's take an example. Let's say we're making a AI that is going to read a company job description, figure out why they want to make this hire, and then talk about how we can help place somebody for that role. So a normal staffing and recruiting outreach AI message. So if you were to make one AI to write that message, it's going to get a little crazy. But if you make one AI to go in and say, hey, why do they want to be hiring for this role in particular? What is the reason that they want to be hiring for? What certifications are they looking for? What qualifications are they looking for? And summarize all of those things for me. Then you would be able to jump in and get it into a summary. And then you would say, okay, now next AI, using that summary, like output in this way, and then we can just go into it as well. And so whenever we're using AI, we always want to try to have AI do one thing at a time. We don't want AI to take on too many things because it's really only good at doing one thing really well at a time. And so I know I talk fast, so if I were to just do a quick review, we first talked about the 4-step framework that we use: define your objective, give it the data to make the decision from, constrain its creativity, and then give it examples, and then also only ask AI to do one thing at a time. And sometimes you could split that up between gathering information and then actually executing your AI line, but that's just, just one example. You have two other tools at your disposal that you can use to increase your, the accuracy of your prompts and what you want it to do. You not only have the prompt itself, but then you have the system prompt, and then you have the examples that can lead into it. And so I'll take the system prompt first. The system prompt, I used to think that this was a waste of time, and I wouldn't really ever edit the system prompt. And to this day, if we're doing something like super simple where it's just, hey, all I want to say is I was on your website and I saw that you help fitness enthusiasts breathe better. I don't use a system prompts for that. It can handle that. But if we're asking it to do anything more complicated, we will at least add a little bit of a system prompt. And so you can think of the system prompt as just the role that you're giving the AI so that it kind of knows the job that it needs to do. And so one other tip is never tell the system prompt or the AI that you're writing a cold email. Not because I think there's any kind of security problems that they'll stop you with. Mainly it's because then all of the garbage SEO information that it's been trained on for cold email, all the people who try to rank for cold email tips and things like that, all of those garbage articles are going to bubble up. We always say persuasive message, never say help me write a cold email, because it's just gonna go crazy. And so in the system prompt, sometimes I would say one of the things that we really do often across all of our customers, because I guess another like mini tip here is I fully believe that most AI prompts for cold email, you should be able to post them publicly, and they're not going to help anybody except for your competitors, because you should be using your own prompts for AI. We do have a couple that we use a lot for other customers. And so one of those is I love to train AI on what the company does. And then we will show the AI what the prospects company does so that we can make the email really relatable to their offering and how they help people and all those kind of things. We do that for a bunch of our customers. So that's one that kind of breaks that rule. We will edit the system prompt to say that they are a VP of sales, a part of the team, and this is what the company helps people do. And you are just speaking casually but professionally at a conference to somebody, and you are, explaining how you would specifically be able to help their company. Don't use any words that are above a 5th grade reading level. Don't use any words like amazing or, overly compliment them or any of those things. That's a good time for the system prompt, because we really need to nail that relevance messaging, and it changes, it costs us no time and no money to add 4 sentences into that system prompt to really nail, hey, you are an officer of this company, this is what the company does. And oftentimes when we find out, and when we want to quickly train that system prompt, we will just open up ChatGPT 4.0 in the user interface with internet access, and then we'll literally just say, hey, go to this website and, in 8 sentences tell me what this company does, and then we'll copy and paste that and put it into the training, just so that anybody on my team can do that without having knowledge of what they're trying to do. So I guess another little tip there. And so the system prompt overall, we just use it when we need it to change its role, and we need it to, like, when in situations where it's doing some really high level thinking or we can't have it sound like a bot. That's one of the examples we use the system prompts for. The examples, and so if you're new to AI, using the examples is like, basically you can when you're using the ChatGPT interface, you can have conversations with AI. When you're using examples, you can say, this is what the prompt is, and then this is what I would want the output to be. So that ChatGPT can look back at the conversation and say, ah, yes, okay, they said this, and then I was supposed to say whatever to that. I'm going to keep following that pattern. And so I would say we dedicate far more time to the examples than we do the system prompt. And so we'll get the whole prompt done, get everything going, get a good baseline of just what we want it to say without changing anything. And then before we let AI go crazy and we send all of those emails, we'll write 2 to 4 examples manually to just make sure that it knows exactly what we're trying to achieve. And so I would say examples is maybe the most expensive thing to add to your prompt, but it is the most game changing when it comes to like really increasing the quality of your prompt and getting the exact messaging and the phrasing and everything after that to really increase, the effectiveness of your prompt. And so, and even then with 4.0 mini, it's not even that expensive unless you're like trying to output books or something. And so anyway, then, so that's how we basically think about using examples and using the system prompt. When it comes to troubleshooting the AI, one tip that I found that I like is I feel like, and I did this when I first started prompting, I feel as though a lot of times people will see something wrong with the prompt and then they'll say, do not do this thing. And then I, what I found is I don't feel like that covers enough of the edge cases. And so if I see something wrong with a prompt, I'll put in, hey, don't do this thing, but I'll also add more instructions. So you're saying, hey, don't do this, but I'll add instructions of do this. So if it keeps outputting in your, if you don't follow my advice and you are trying to output an entire email and it keeps starting every email with, I hope this email finds you well, and you put in, I've literally done this before. I've literally written 4 times in a row in different ways. Do not start this email with, I hope this finds you well. Please, whatever you do not start this email with, I hope this finds you well. I hope this finds you well is a terrible way to start emails, blah, blah, blah. It'll still start it with that. And so I will tell it in a different way. And I'll say, okay, hey, take on the style of Josh Braun, who you could add that to the system prompt. Take on the style of Josh Braun, John Barrows, Sam McKenna, Jen Allen Kuth. So sorry. Is there an N in that name? Anyway, take on that style and write in this framework and do this and all these things. Then it'll stop doing, I hope this email finds you well, right? So whenever you are troubleshooting the AI and you're looking to change your prompt, tell it what not to do, but then also give it more detailed instructions, especially in that third part of your prompt where you're constraining the creativity, right? Another way that we increase the effectiveness of our prompts and through troubleshooting is with examples that I talked about before. I would say most of the time we're changing our prompt and adding more examples. Very few times we're changing the system prompt. So we're really playing a lot with the actual prompt and the examples, but mainly what I'll do is I'll see something wrong, I'll tell it not to do it. I still do that, but then I'll give it more instructions around that thing to combat that thing of what to do instead, because for some reason in the negative it doesn't work as well. And so then another tip that I have about AI prompting is sometimes you want AI to do research for you and find if something is true or not. And or you're using something like Claygen or an AI agent inside of Clay, or you're using any kind of AI agent, and you're saying, hey, return this data for me. A lot of times, so I think that AI is kind of like a 12-year-old with infinite knowledge. And as we all know, if you've ever met a 12-year-old, sometimes they just, even if you tell them to be quiet, they'll just still say something. And so if you're building a workflow and it requires that if the data is not true, you want the prompt to be empty so that it doesn't move on with the rest of your workflow, it's not going to do that really well. And the reason it won't do that really well is because then it'll still output something like, oh, I could not find the answer to this, or it'll just start making things up. And so what we'll start doing is, again, another tip is we'll add in confidence intervals. And so one, geez, even while I'm going through this video, there's more tips than I even wrote down. So like So I'm actually even going to write that. We're going to revisit the confidence interval thing because, and I'm just writing that down. So let's say you're asking it to go find like to read a website and find case studies that the website is. You're using Clagent, or you even downloaded all the text and you're asking about case studies. If you say, "Hey, I need you to find this case study," if it doesn't find a case study, it might just make one up, and that is going to be way, way, way worse than anything that else that could happen. And so what we'll do is we'll say, hey, if you are not more than 90% sure that this is the case study from the website and it's a really positive case study and you can't bring me back this information, output the word purple. And I ask it to output the word purple so that I, again, stay in control of what the output is going to be. And I can set the rest of my workflow to just not continue if it contains the keyword purple in this scenario. And so this is really great when you are giving it a bunch of text that it needs to do research on, but it's really, really great when you're using Clagent. A good example of this is I was trying to build a Clagent to go out and find case studies about a customer. And so go to the website and go find case studies, that this customer has listed on their website. And I told it multiple times, like we were talking about, I told it, do not get your information from any other source other than the website in the input. All of your information must come from this website. Do not deviate anywhere else. And to make sure that it was actually working, I put in one of my favorite brands, No Ball Project, who sponsored the CrossFit Games at one point. If you ever want to talk CrossFit, I'm here. And so I put in one of those websites. It didn't go to nobullproject.com. It couldn't find case studies on nobullproject.com. So then it went and it searched the internet and it found the marketing agency that built No Bull Project's website, that they listed No Bull Project as a case study. And it gave me that back. And it's like, no, I don't want you to do that. So that's why we always say, like, hey, if you can't find this information within this confidence interval, then just output this keyword so that I know you couldn't find it. I don't ask it to say nothing because it's never going to say nothing. Its whole job, ChatGPT's whole job is to chat. It's literally just always going to talk back to you. So we'll have a keyword that we can filter out on. And so again, double tapping more into confidence intervals. Another thing that I see people doing wrong with AI is they use AI to sometimes they're using AI to figure out if a company is a SaaS company or not a SaaS company. And so what you're essentially doing there is you're saying, hey, AI, I'm giving you a binary choice. Is this a SaaS company or is this not a SaaS company? Well, then it doesn't really, there's so much gray area between that. One of our customers is pilot.com. Are they a SaaS company? I don't know, because on their website, they talk about all the amazing software that they can enable their customers with, but they really are a tech enabled service. They don't give anybody access to that SaaS, but they are a venture funded company and they've built a lot of their own technology. Is it a SaaS company? It's a little tough. I would say no, because you don't actually get access to the software, but they talk a lot about how they've built custom software for their customers. And AI is going to get confused by that. And so what we'll do is I don't say rate this company if it's SaaS or not. I will say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not a SaaS company and 10 being a SaaS company, or 1 to 5, it doesn't matter because you'll see why I come up with these numbers. Um, Rated on a scale of 1 to 10, whether or not it's a SaaS company, we'll use that instead so that I can manually review it and say, okay, anything above a 7 is pretty safe. If it's below a 7, we're going to discount it, whatever that might be. And then the reason I like to have those numbers is because then I could give it examples and I could say, hey, a 1 is a construction company. Like it's nowhere near a SaaS company, right? Another kind of company that is not a SaaS company is a, you know, I don't know, a sports league or something, or a gym or a barbershop, or all these are 1s. They are not SaaS companies whatsoever. And then we could tell it, a 10 would be Salesforce. Salesforce is 100% a SaaS company. That's all they do. Very well known SaaS company. Here we go. And then I will manually give it examples of, okay, so I would rate this one as I would rate Pilot as a 6 because this, and that's why I probably wouldn't use 1 to 10 for this SaaS framework. But I just wanted to tell you, I probably would use 1 to 4 because then you could handle like barbershops where it's not even close. And then you could handle like a marketing agency that uses software. And then you could handle tech enabled services at 3. And then 4 could be the SaaS companies, right? And so then you set those parameters and that works way better than just asking for a binary. So anyway, that's just a little bit of what I wanted to say about confidence intervals. Then I would say there's three other tips that I would give about actually prompting, and then we'll probably talk about Claygent for a little bit, and then wrap up the video. And so again, with just overall prompting tips, another thing that we found that works really, really well is at the end of your prompt to kind of guilt the AI and say, please, could you get this right? I need you to take your time, think through this, do not rush, take as much time as you need in order to get the right response. And then it'll like, and then I'll say, my job is on the line. If you don't do this correctly, I'm going to be fired. Please think thoroughly about your response before you give it. I don't know why. It just improves the results. I don't have anything other than like it just improves the results, and I don't exactly know why. And so you can guilt it a little bit, but the two things there is to guilt it that, hey, my job is on the line here. But then the other thing that I think is really important is to ask it to take as much time as it needs in order to get these things done. Then one other trick that I found is to tell the prompt that to pretend that if you're trying to do something really analytical and your prompt isn't working and you really got to get this right. Another trick that we'll use is I call it the three wise men trick. They can be women, whatever you want. And so I'll basically say, hey, pretend you are a group of three wise men or three wise women, and then I'll assign what each wise person is in charge of doing. And I'll say, okay, you're in charge of making sure that the output includes this. You're in charge of the output including this. And then you're a skeptical person who you don't think everything's going to work and you're going to tell us why. And then the other two are going to edit things, whatever you're going to do. And I'll assign a job to each wise person. And then I'll say, do not output anything until you all three have spoken to each other and you agree on the output of what you need, of what we need to do here. I found that works really, really well when you're trying to do something analytical and you just can just tell it to have a pretend conversation between the three wise people. And so I don't know, that's just another tip. And then tree of thought prompting is another thing that I think everybody should just look up. We don't use it a whole lot because again, we're just trying to write one sentence at a time. It's not rocket science here, but if you're trying to do something above that, I would definitely just check that out. And again, a lot of these tips are for writing single sentences. I would say if you're going any further than this, you would want to take a look at creating something in the UI that's really custom trained, or creating their own AI. A lot of the things that we're doing, we're just spinning up really quickly though for our customers. So we don't go that crazy with setting custom instructions and all those other kinds of things. But yeah. And then finally, just if you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it. I don't know who is going to be interested in watching a video that's 30 minutes long about AI prompting, but I'm thankful that you're on this journey here. As always, comment that you made it this far because I really appreciate it if you do watch this whole video. And so with Claygent, just another thing is I'm I would say with Claygent, the biggest problem that I see people making with Claygent, if you've never heard of Clay or Claygent before, Claygent inside of this platform called Clay is an AI connected to a Google search that can do a ton of things for you. Claygent, I would just tell everybody the tough part about Claygent is that it does not have a way to edit the examples. And so we go really heavy on finding as many examples as possible. And our Claygent prompts still are, I mean, I've never been able to get Claygent ever since 4.0 mini came out. I've never been able to get Claygent to charge me more than like 0.001 or maybe 0.01 is maybe the most expensive I'll get it now, but most of our prompts are way, way cheaper than that. And the important thing is you have to spend more time in the 4-step framework, defining the goal, referencing the data, constraining the creativity, and then giving examples. You got to spend more time in the examples when you're using Claygent. And that's basically my big tip, just because there's no other way to give it examples. So it just has to know what it's looking for. But ever since 4.0 mini came out, geez, you could go crazy with Claygent and it like basically costs nothing. So that's been really good. But yeah, as always, thank you guys for watching the video. It's almost been 30 minutes and I hope it made sense because even while I was recording it, other ideas were popping into my head. And I know that I have a very low production level on this YouTube channel. And so if you made it this far, just let me know because I super appreciate it. Thanks, guys.